Coach, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it, man, as always. I apologize. Let me first apologize. Been a crazy couple of years, but I'm always got my eye on Kennesaw State, man. And you were one of my favorite coaches of all time because of your intensity. Let me just talk to you about that. I always ask you about that piece. How after 9 years, it'll be 9 years this year, right?
10.
10, that's right. Because you were one of the originals when it first happened.
Yeah.
What keeps you excited and wanting to keep doing this at Kennesaw State like you've been doing it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think early on, it was the challenge and if we were an unknown entity, we didn't really have anything. People weren't even sure if we could get 11 guys on the field and put a football team together. And then I think you built up a little of that motivation to prove to everybody that we belonged. And that was kind of early on. That was our kids. That's how we kind of thought about things. That's how we kind of approached things. And I think, and probably in the last few years, we've accomplished a lot. And I think to your point, you got to kind of work to say, all right, how do we keep climbing the ladder's one thing, sustain it and staying up there, which is the energy piece, is another piece of it. I think what's been great about what's happened here recently, good and bad a little bit, I guess, but we had a subpar year for us. You go 4 years in a row winning 10 plus games, and I think all of a sudden you have some adversity, probably didn't manage it well, things I probably could have done better. But then you get this move, right? And all of a sudden, bam, it's like, hey, we're going to go FBS. We're going to go Conference USA. Also on top of that, Emmanuel, change in offensive coordinator, change in strength coach, change in defensive coordinator, which I've had a few DCs over time for a good reason. They've all got. And so I think all that and some of these things going on have kind of re-energized a lot of things around here. It is a challenge. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's the energy piece is always, you have to work at it. And I've always thought for me, I've been able to overcome my other deficiencies by having a lot of enthusiasm and energy about what we're trying to get accomplished. And I felt like that, hopefully that translates to our kids. I might not say everything perfectly or do everything perfectly, but there'll be passion behind it, which people will feel, which to me is as important, maybe not more important than anything else. So I do think it's a challenge to maintain that. I'm not going to sit here and it's something you got to keep working at. And but what we're getting ready to do, we're going to get ready to go make history again and do some things. It's almost like back when we started. It's just a different way we're going about it. We're getting to do some things that when we started, nobody thought we'd know. Well, we're going to do the same thing. It's just a different life.
Let me break down two things you said, Coach. How did you? I know you started off 6-5, your first career, magnificent. After that, but this year, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, Coach probably about to tear some things off the wall and all that. But after a tough year like here, how did you personally handle last year?
Yeah, I think the first thing you do is you pull the thumb and go, what can we do better? And that was it. And this was throughout the season because we got off. There was a lot of expectations around the season. Preseason this, preseason that. I think our kids, all of us probably got caught up in a little bit. I'm not going to make it all about our kids because we probably all did a little bit. But and then we got off to a tough start, and we were never able to overcome that. And I also think a little bit for us here was we had won so much. I do think sometimes you forget how you got to where you are. And unfortunately, you sometimes need that dose of humble pie to kind of go back, pull the thumb, and say, all right, what do we have to do to get back to where the standard of Kennesaw State football, right? The expectations of winning. And so the first thing you do is self-reflect and look at, all right, how can we adjust? Emmanuel, times have changed since we started this program now. I talk about it a lot, like it's changed. Kids are, I'm not saying this is bad, but they're different than they were when we started. I call it kind of that post-COVID time where you have to attack and find different ways to engage and motivate young people versus than when we started. I'm not saying that's a negative. I'm just saying that's a reality. And I think you have to adapt and adjust a little bit because I am kind kind of an old school. I'm gonna yell and do all that. And some of these kids yell at them. They're like, "Whoa, what? Wait a minute, And I'm like, "Hey, man, I love you. It's just me communicating. I don't think you're, whatever's." But so I think all that what you're saying, you got to really sit back and go, all right. And I've spent more time probably trying to think the best way to communicate and motivate our kids, probably in the last several years more than ever, just because I feel like you have to, and it's different, and that's okay. That's just adapting and adjusting. It's not necessarily anybody's fault. It's just where we are right now. So I think self-reflection, to answer your question, is the first thing you do. I'm in charge. It is what it is. And I think it was what's been great about it, though. And we had some kids that maybe weren't 100% bought in, that maybe need to go do something different. But since that, the off season for us has been as good as it's been maybe since 2017, which is probably the best year we had here. And I'm not talking about I'm just talking about collectively, we came on the scene for sure in 17, right? So it's been really good. They've been bought in. We're not fighting stuff. Everybody's having a good time. It's been really good. So I hope we can continue that trend. Again, it goes back to sometimes you need a little dose of that humble pie. We all do, right? To kind of, I don't want it, and I never want it because I'd rather us be winning. We'll deal with that. But I think you need that, and I think as a person, especially a person in leadership, you got to pull the thumb and self-reflect. First of all, hey, how can I do better to help lead our coaches, our staff, and our kids to get done what we want to get done here? And so that's first. And that didn't happen just after the season. That was throughout the season because it just, it wasn't our standard, right? Most people have been, it might have been okay with a 5-6 season. Here, that's a bad year. That's bad. But that's the expectations of Kennesaw State football, and that is the standard, right? So,
but they got to make you feel good to have that standard, though, right? You set a standard of winning, which every institution, every coach, this community has embraced. So yeah. I know a guy like you probably was like, that was good to have those type of standards, right?
So when we started here, our goal was like these kids, we hadn't played a game, like, listen, we want people to search us up on the schedule moving forward. Oh man, we got Kennesaw State. Before when we started here, they're like, who is Kennesaw State? They ain't never play football, right? And that was the goal. Like we talked about it all the time. And I think we got there. You know what I mean? Well, that brings a whole nother set of responsibilities, right? And I tell our guys, like, hey, now people know about us. That means every week you're going to get everybody's A game. We might not got that when we started, right? But we're going to get it now, and we're still going to get it because we've established the standard, which is our standard. Not matching anybody's, but it's what we believe we should do here. So that brings a greater responsibility in your preparation, your process, about how you go about your business, because now you got to be ready to go every week. So there's no question, but that's what we wanted, to my point, to your question. That's what we set out for, and I wouldn't want any other way. I don't want the humble pie. I don't want no part of it, but I think, in life sometimes you need some of that because it reminds you it gets you back to kind of what's important and what you need to do to be successful to meet those standards.
Big move you made off season, not player-wise, but I want to make sure I got it. Coach Klinakis.
Yeah.
Bringing him in as OC, and you saw some of the things he's done before. How important was it? You talked about your strength coach, you talked about defense coordinator, just overall bringing in new coaches and coaches for this next move that you make about tonight.
So a couple things on that. First, we are very culture driven. I think you've been here and been in many press conference early on. We are a culture based, hardworking, effort, attitude, and toughness program. Everything we do here revolves around our communication and getting along with one another and how we interact, and we are who we are, and that's what's given us a chance to win. So anytime you bring somebody in, for me, it's always like, all right, we got to get the right person. They got to be a ball coach, yes. They got to communicate, yes. They got to recruit, yes. But finding the right people is the most important because this is a people-driven business, right? Relationships, all that stuff. So I think there's two parts to this. One, getting the right people. Coach K is an awesome, so I've never met him a day in my life. I honestly never heard of him. Didn't know who he was. And so I'm searching for an offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. Offensively, probably two of the most critical positions you could, as a coach. Like when I started here, like OL coach, because I've done a lot of the skill stuff, so I could go cover that up if I needed to. But that's a tall task finding both that. So I found this, to a friend of mine. He talked about Coach K, and I started asking around, right? Like, tell me about him. So find people I know. You're gonna love him. The kids will love him. That's all everybody said. I'm like, well, who is this guy? Yeah. So I think that's one component, like finding the right person, and he is a phenomenal person. The kids love him. He's come into a staff where already had a staff intact, right? That's not easy to do. He came in by himself, embraced who was here, embraced our program and our culture, and and is just a great person and a great addition. On the offensive side, so there's twofold question. You got staff, person, people. Open week, third week of the season, I walked to Coach Chestnut, who was offensive coordinator at the time. I went down the hall and said, we're going to have to change. So he and I sat down and talked. I said, the rules have taken us down a road. Some things we're just not going to be able to do what we've been able to do before. We had already made that decision. We had already made and we weren't going to change midstream of the season. But so we had already made a decision to go down a little different road. Still being who we are, just different presentation, different way of doing some things to help us in a couple different ways. One, with the rules. Two, I think it'll help us in recruiting. People want to beat up what you do and this and that. But so we had already done that. So I kind of knew what direction I wanted to go. Now, finding that was, I think, like sometimes you can look at things, Emmanuel, and say, gosh, that was, you had all these coaches leave. It's awful. It's bad. You had a rough year. And I got in a little bit of that. That's human nature, right? Right. But then there's some positive things. Sometimes you don't see them that come out of that when you get to hire good people that fit what you're looking for, right? And all three of the hires have been phenomenal. But offensively, we're going to be a pistol, zone read, and option based. Conceptually, not much different what we've done. Just different presentation. Coach K, I call him Coach K. That's what Klonakis, but Coach K. Invented the pistol back at Nevada when Colin Kaepernick was the quarterback, and that's really when you kind of go look. And then he's been with Lamar Jackson and worked for for Coach Petrino. It's been around a lot of really good players and good people along the way, or good coaches. So conceptually, a lot of things fit who we are. We're not going to get away from who we are. We're just going to look a little different. And I tell you what, our kids picked up on it quick. They enjoyed it. It was really good. We got to go find some bigger linemen and do some stuff, which we kind of knew was coming. So I know I gave you a long-winded answer, but there's so the moving parts. You got to find that X's and O's and the things that match. But more importantly, you're finding the right person to fit your staff and the culture. And obviously, with all three hires, we're specifically talking about Coach K right now. Great match, great fit, and I think we're excited about where we're going. With the program, continue to move forward, and also offensively as we take this next step into Conference USA, the timing really couldn't be better for some of the changes we're going through. I've changed several other things to try to, back to your question, re-energize, kind of, all right, we're going to practice in the mornings now. We're moving for the afternoon. We're going to do some things differently to kind of, yes, exactly.
Let me ask you this. You talk about, and you just said it, and one of my questions was, 10 years ago, Coach, there were no NILs. Social media was there, but it's like everything has moved to the social media platform. You talked about a little bit about having to grow to connect, because this is a people's business. Yes, X's and O's, but it's also a people business. How have you connected? How have you been able to do, like this year's recruiting class, what is it that you had to do to be able to say, I see what you're talking about, young fella. But you want to be here. I understand your language a little bit more. What have you had to do to be able to get to today's youth and get them to be able to come?
Hey, you just got to spend more time with them. You got to be, I think, I told our staff this was coming out of COVID. I use COVID just because it's an easy timeline I think things just got accelerated that were already going in a direction. They just got accelerated in that time frame. But so I told our staff, I said, guys, we need to be, I said, we meet with our kids and we talk with them, but I'm like, we're going to be intentional. Like, there's signs on coaches' doors like, hey, like once a week, every other week, I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with our players, not necessarily about ball, but trying to find out what else is going on, because they're not real open to coming and having conversations. They may Snapchat you, you know what I mean? Or they may, you know what I mean? But to go back to your point, that's just the way. And so I think the thing for us was we got to have more conversations. We got to talk more. I think the biggest skill you have is listening and not talking sometimes for us, and listening to getting the kids to talk a little bit about what's going on in their life. Because what you find out is the barriers that are put up or they create, maybe they're not really there, but they may create them, that are barriers in them being the best version of themselves they can be. But you're not going to know that because they're not as open maybe as they used to be about communicating. Hey, coach, this is going on at home, or my girlfriend this, or what, you know, I mean, whatever it might be. So I think the big thing is just conversation. Obviously, when you talk about social media, not my favorite. You know, I told our communications, I said, if you'll just send me something, I'll put it out there. But I think you got to do some things to try to engage, and a lot of times that's where they engage. So like, don't put a lot out there. If I put something that's not just a typical retweet, it's intentional. Like, I might be trying to get a message to our team. Maybe not the fan base, maybe not everybody else, but I might be trying to go with them in my own way of saying, you know, back early on, my press conferences, our kids used to go listen to them. And I found out they were all listening to them. And I said, okay, there was another avenue for me without being direct to communicate. Because sometimes when you're indirect, it goes a lot further than when you're direct. So, but they don't do that quite as much now as they did back then. So you got to find some different ways. Sometimes social media is a good way. So a lot of conversations individually, and I try to do a better job of explaining why we do things. Not just, hey, we go do it. Hey, guys, this is why we do this in the off season. This is the benefit from this. You may not see it now. Hey, this is why we do this. It's just, I think it's part of what you got to do.
Let's talk about going forward, Coach. This year you're independent, as they say, and then you go into Conference USA. For a year like this, 9 games, 5 home, 4 in a row. What is the main goal for this year? I know winning is always the goal.
Yeah.
To get ready for that 2024 Conference USA. Yeah. What is the goal for this year to be able to leap into Conference USA?
So we got the news October of the move to Conference USA, and internally, coaches, we revamped a recruiting plan, did some things to get ourselves aligned of what we felt like we need to do. We'll continue to do that. We've made a lot of, we're still who we are, but we're going to have to do some things differently, and we recognize that. For our kids, the standard is the standard right now. It don't matter. We're going to get ready to go win ball games. And I told every kid when I met with them, I met with every kid at the end of spring, I said, the last thing I said to them was, it's not who we play, it's how we play. It's who we are. And I think because of the season we had, they get that. If we would have won the conference and win a couple rounds of the playoff, that conversation would have been challenging right now. Things happen for a reason, even though I don't like them. Right. But so from our kids, it don't matter. The standard is the standard. Everything we do's got to be to that right now. So that ain't changing. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of conversation about how we continue to move forward in recruiting, how we continue to build out. We'll do some different things this year, and I'll be open with our kids about it. You know, there may be some kids we redshirt this year. There may be there's going to be some things we're going to do. But the main message to our kids is going to be, we're going to go win. I don't care who we're playing, because that's who we are. That's the stuff we talked about earlier about we've established that as an identity for our program. We're not going to change that. Now, we got a lot to get ready for, right? Like it's a heavy lift. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we're doing to get ourselves ready. Hopefully to add staff to, obviously we're adding scholarships. As we prepare to go do this. So we're working on that, and that's a little more behind the scenes. But we're able to go communicate and recruit as an FBS program. And as soon as that announcement was made, in my mind, everything we did was that. Like, as soon as the announcement was made, that's it. Everything we're doing, we're FBS. Like now, obviously we're going through this season at FCS Independent. So you got a combination of things going on right now. It's crazy because it's not the same, but it's very similar to when we started. Like, it really is. Like, and I have taken some things we did then and how we kind of built ourselves out. It's different, but it's the same. So I do think that background has helped. I've talked to a lot of people that have transitioned or are doing it right now, to just ask, hey, how did you manage this or that? I think a lot of times it's specific to your institution and some things you can and can't do financially or where you are. But at the end of the day, we're a winning program. The standard is the standard. And I've always said from day one, if we go play our brand of football, the way we're capable of, we'll have a chance to win every game we play. I'm not saying we're going to win them all, but if we go play the way we're capable, we're going to have a shot. And I said that back before we ever even did anything. And that ain't changed any. And if we get back to that, that's the standard. That's what we're shooting for. And then behind the scenes, we'll continue to build out and get ourselves ready to go to Conference USA. I've talked about the goals for Conference USA. I mean, we got to win at home. We want to win a conference. We want to win a bowl game. We're going to college football playoff.
Yeah. A few more, Coach, real quick. I feel old. And here's why. Blake. Remember when you started?
Yeah.
The pictures of where, here's my son. He's growing. And now, for him to be playing for you a few years now, and coach is one thing, dad is another. Coaches go through this, but how have you been able to make sure, because the standard is the standard. He knows the standard. He grew up around the standard, but he still also knows you got to contribute when you come here.
Yeah.
Being Coach Bohannon and father and dad Bohannon, how's that been for you these last few years?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky and fortunate that Blake is here. My other son Braden is here as a freshman.
Right.
It was their choice. There was never, I said, guys, I just want you to be happy. If you want to play college football, Blake was a COVID kid, like he was in the era of that. And our program, the great thing about it is, his biggest worry was he didn't want to look like he was getting anything any different than any of his teammates. That was his big thing. And but he has come here as a walk-on and earned everything. Started every game last year, earned a scholarship, has really grown and just gotten so much better. But I get to watch him every day. Like, I'm not in there. I mean, I'm coaching everybody if I need to coach everybody, but Coach Buchanan coaches the wideouts and does a great job, and you know what I mean? Like, but I get to see him every day. At least he's in the building or at practice. I get to watch him play on Saturdays, even though it's in a different.
Right.
But if he wasn't here, I wouldn't get to do that. I would never get to see him play. Right. So I feel very fortunate to have both of them here, to be able to do that. Somebody gave me some good advice at a camp 2 years ago, and he had a son that played for him, and he said, here's the thing you got to do. He said, I played for my dad in high school, but I could go home and be dad, or be at school and it would be coach. Well, they're here all the time. And so I've said to them, I'm like, listen, if you need dad, you're going to have to shut the door and say, I need dad. Because other than that, I got to be coach. And they know that, and they don't want it any other way, right? But honestly, it's really been good. They're workers. They don't know any different, you know what I mean? And here, we treat everybody the same. They're Kennesaw State football players. They could be All-American quarterback or the third string holder, when they walk in that building, they're a Kennesaw State football player. So it kind of works out. So I'm proud of them. Blake obviously, older and been around a little bit longer, but they're both working hard. They're both doing good things. Blake's played a lot of football here. Will continue to play a lot of football. But I feel fortunate to get a chance to watch my kids play when they could be somewhere else, and I would probably never see them play, and that would be tough for me. I'll be honest with you.
Got to wrap it up. I know you got something else to do, Coach. Real quick, two other players, Travis Bell being the first round pick at Kennesaw State. I remember seeing this kid and just to see him grow. And Brinson Rockstar, he's the rock star now with all of this. Seeing former players that you see grow through this, do what they're doing, how as a coach does that make you feel?
I'll tell our guys that go off, it's the best feeling in the world. Like all the games you win, I think my eyes show my competitive nature. I love winning, but I've told people, I said, listen, to have guys come back, right, after they've gone on, whether they've gotten a job, they're a high school coach, whether they're going to be the next star in WWE, whether they're going to be the next, make that 53-man roster with the Bears, right?
Right.
Or a roster somewhere. Just make a roster anywhere. That is the best. Because, see, I know the story behind how they got to where they are. And to watch them grow and develop, I think for me is the most rewarding part of this job. You see a young man like a Travis Bell comes from nothing. We were talking about it in the hallway before he went off to camp. He's like, Coach, I didn't realize I was about to go home. I said, yeah, you were on probation? You were struggling with the structure? He's a great kid, but it was a new environment. But he overcame all that. And that's what this thing's about. That's what coaching's about. That's what giving these kids an opportunity to use their God-given talents to go and get a degree and then have a chance to play the next level. A guy like Bronson, to do something that you knew he was probably going to do the whole time. But little family history with Bronson, and he will be. In my opinion, he'll be one of the most famous people to ever go to school here, in good time. Because I think the next step for him, is going to be the next level for him, and he'll be, and people know Bronson's the nicest young man you'll ever meet, the biggest pleaser you'll ever meet. Now you might turn on and see him on NXT, right? You're like, what the heck is going, but that's Bronson, right? So, but I think, and then we got, we got 20 plus guys now as high school coaches around the state of Georgia and that's some of that stuff to me, to watch, and they'll come back Coach, they're doing great, and they're so proud to be a part of the Kennesaw State football alumni, that special group, right? That took something from nothing and made it a national brand in a short time. They're so proud of that. For me, I don't know that it gets any better than that.
We're finished with that, Coach, man. Thank you. Much success. I can't wait to see the next level. I know it's coming. It's coming, Coach.
It is. We're excited and always appreciate you. You're one of the first that was a part of this back when we got going, and I remember all that stuff. So we really appreciate you and your time and your commitment to us as well.